And then at the same time, if you're in a dangerous situation, you're feeling it in your gut, right? There's that saying of trust your gut because it's your
Yeah.
second brain
Mm.
and whatnot. And the book basically delves into that. And again, I'm not a medical expert and it's been a while since I read the book, but that was the gist. And that changed my life. And I found a doctor that I trusted. And I think my lesson to people when I talk to people about all this is going to different doctors until you find someone that's willing to believe you and exhaust all the possibilities. And once you've exhausted all the possibilities, if they're telling you that there's not an issue, then there's something else going on that you've got to delve into.
Mm.
But
Mm.
if someone's immediate response is to tell you that you're crazy, don't let that get into your head because you're not crazy. You know your body, and go until you find a doctor that does believe you. Because it really did
Mm.
take a toll when I found like 4 doctors that told me it's all in my head. And yet I couldn't, if it was all in my head, then I could be able to I went to therapy even and tried to get myself mentally out of a place so I could get up off the floor. And I still couldn't get up off the floor because my stomach hurt too badly. So again, another really long ramble to your very simple question, but I hope that answered it.
It actually answered it's actually a lot in a way of to my question, and you mentioned something that I previously heard, and also one another thing is the fact that I jotted a lot of things down, and from in terms of I don't know where to start actually. Let me start in terms of your in terms of your brother being would say being diagnosed with autism. Autism has a big spectrum, and
Mhm.
at some point that people don't
Mhm.
understand it in a way. And yeah, I agree. There might be people that are out there that understand it. They might, as much as they might accept this kind of autism, but one
Mhm.
thing that we all always forget is the fact that there's this thing called non-verbal autism. And
Mhm.
it's one of the things that I remember we were doing was a documentary, and I was quite on myself. I'm someone that likes researching on things. If I talk about specific conversation, I need to research on it and be able to have the necessary information. So I forgot the name of the book and also the author, but it was written by a Japanese guy, and obviously he also had his own autism. He had autism, so he couldn't talk. He only wrote, and it's quite a fascinating book. Whereas they ended up making a documentary, whereas they show in different places that how people view the spectrum around autism. I just wanted to say that because I
Yeah.
I myself see myself as a huge advocate when it comes to autism.
Mhm.
Whereas it's quite important for us to actually acknowledge that there's this thing and how can we react towards it. So it's quite another thing that I just wanted to say. And going
Yeah,
back to
my
what you
brother is
said,
also verbal, by the way. He's what they call high functioning in autism. So, although he needs a lot of the services and needs a lot of assistance in basic day to day things, like getting himself to point A from point A to point B, he is verbal. He does communicate with us. I'm very lucky in that he is willing to give us a hug and tell us that he loves us. And we get to have him and I have a really special, wonderful bond. And he's the sweetest person ever. But you could definitely tell when you're speaking with him that he's special, that he's not just your run of the mill, quote unquote, normal, whatever that means, person, that he is neurodivergent in that way. But he is on the better, quote unquote, better end of the spectrum in that it's always easier when someone can tell you that they could communicate with you. But he's also has celiac. And it was really interesting that he didn't know to communicate with us that his stomach was bothering him. We actually got diagnosed because he stopped registering on the growth chart. And my mother advocated for him full throttle. And we then, looking back when we got diagnosed, he started like peeling. If we got McDonald's chicken nuggets, he would peel the breadcrumbs off of the chicken nuggets. And he knew that the breadcrumbs were what was bothering him. So has this whole other layer to him where I was like, oh, he knew before any of us did that that was an issue. So yeah, so he didn't know, although he does communicate with us and tell us when he's upset and things like that, he did not know to communicate with us that what he was feeling inside his body when he ate certain foods was not normal. So but he was communicating in that he's like, I'm going to peel these breadcrumbs off the chicken nuggets and not tell you why. You'll just have to figure it out.
And I feel like one thing that I realized about people that are autistic, and I have met them, one thing that they have is kindness, and it's quite they're just kind souls in a way of
Yes.
you would never. I would say that I have never come across or an autistic person that is, I would say, mean towards other people.
Right.
They always in terms of kind, and it's quite actually. In a way, I believe that we are deriving the actual conversation here because as much as I would love to talk more in terms of all day about this conversation because I really believe in terms of when we advocate for people that actually can't advocate for themselves, we actually doing the real change. We are able to influence other people. We're able to educate other people about these kinds of conversations. And I want to talk about that thing that you mentioned about female doctors. And myself, I also believe that because I can't, I can't see because to me, I view it in the perspective of a therapist. Because if I come for a therapy, and no offense, also in terms of gender, I can't go to a female therapist or a therapist that is not native, a therapist that is white, or that's how I feel. Because the reason why I'm saying this is the fact that I know that when I go there, this person would actually understand my pain. They understand where I come from. Because at some point, in some way, we connect somewhere in a way of, in terms of culture. It's something that I've seen myself, and I feel like it's something that has, in a way, stopped me in terms of going to therapy. And another thing that's quite an interesting thing that you spoke about, Gatal. And I remember, I think it was weeks back or a week ago, whereas I had a guest here on the podcast, really a really interesting guest by the name of Matt. Matt, he's a co-host of Fully Fueled, a podcast. And he said that instead of saying that the brain is the gut brain is the second brain, he said it should be your first brain. And it really actually changed my perspective because sometimes we don't consider that if we eat everything, nothing will happen to us. That's how I used to believe. Because I used to judge people that didn't eat everything in terms of calling them weak. You're weak, man. You don't eat this and this and this and this. Now I have different perspective because I see that if I eat certain things, my mental well-being will be actually, I would say that better. And it goes back. You gotta in terms of I like making references to things that I've heard because it goes back to also the conversation that I had with Dr. Smith, where he mentioned in terms of as much as we see vitamins as things that actually contribute to our physical and mental health, but we don't actually realize that there are vitamins that are toxins within us, which is vitamin A. So in terms of eating these bright colors, whereas they have a very bad effect on us, it's something that I would say that the conversation for another day. And you mentioned about the gut feeling, and it's something that I've been trying to actually listen to. I didn't think that it would have a contribution to this podcast as a whole, that gut feeling. But I think I started to listen to Dr. Huberman Lab podcast. Yeah, I listened to it a little bit, but I didn't finish it. It's something that it's quite different. Going to the conversation in terms of your dual citizenship. And impacting in terms of interacting with COVID. COVID, I don't know, like COVID hit us all in terms of that. I feel like COVID to me was a blessing in disguise because that's when I started this podcast because it really
Mhm.
assisted me in terms of understanding what is actual depression, what is actual anxiety. So, in, definitely in different places, there are different perspectives when it comes to mental health because of the culture, definitely. And how would you describe in terms of the field when it comes to mental health when it comes in Italy?
I'm sorry, the connection broke. Can you repeat that
Also,
question?
I'm asking that in a way of what is the general differentiation between Italy and United States in terms of mental health, in terms of the advocacy around the topic, that topic.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, and something I didn't get too much of a chance to delve into incredibly deeply. My understanding is as much as European countries are way more progressive, they're also still incredibly conservative. And in Italian culture, especially, it's still a very Catholic country. It's very traditional as far as its focus on family and the gender roles that have been set out that we've known since however a tale as old as time, right? So there is also a stigma with going to therapy because if you need guidance, you go to church. You don't need to go to a doctor. That's still a little bit of a stigma, a negative stigma attached as far as Italy is concerned. I obviously that I'm able to get my dual citizenship in Italy. I come from an Italian American family. My father is Italian. My mother is of Irish descent. So I've noticed on the Italian side of the family, there's still that stigma. There's still in America, there's still that, you keep family problems within the family. You don't go for outside help. That's nobody's business, not even a doctor. Whereas on my mother's side, the Irish side of the family, which I'm very fortunate, they have more of everybody's in therapy. Everybody's talking out their feelings. Everybody needs to share and express because there's that, stigma of Irish guilt or stereotype, I should say. So I grew up with both extreme ends of the spectrum growing up in America. But then in Italy, it's more related to my father's side of you keep it within the family. You don't need to go and share your business. Maybe if anything, you go and you talk to the priest, and that's about it. That's my understanding in the area I was in of how they handle mental health things.
That's in terms of that. I always thought that it's something that Hollywood actually, in terms of just in a way, assume that Italian people are like that. Actually, in most movies, we'll always see that they are in a way Catholic, and it's quite a different thing. It's quite a fascinating thing hearing it from you, a person that has actually experienced that. And you spoke about traveling, and traveling can actually have its own benefits, and also it can have, I would say, disadvantages in terms of being someone that travels alone and being able to actually, yeah. Okay, let me rephrase my question. Let me rephrase. In a way of when you travel, you have benefits, definitely. Whereas it entails it entails self-discovery. Sometimes we might think that we know ourselves only to find out when you travel you come across things that you didn't know that actually you love this. You didn't know this. So what are some of those benefits that you actually as someone that is solo traveling has, I would say, came upon you?
That is a question I've been waiting for someone to ask me. Because you're very correct in that when you're traveling alone over a long period of time, I was by myself essentially for 9 months and traveling to all these different countries, cities, cultures, things like that. and I had to go through some really tough things and really positive things. And I think it was the best thing I could have done for my mental health to